Okay, Francesco, thanks again for joining me.
Great to be here. Yeah.
Now, we're having the excitement of being able to play another of the pieces from your debut season as music director. And what I thought we'd talk about just for a few minutes in this Zoom session is the Bernstein Symphonic Dances from West Side Story. I've always loved this. I got to say, when I'm sitting in the concert hall, this may be my favorite piece. What's exciting, what's fun for you to conduct this piece?
I mean, it is so much fun. It's as if you take, I mean, I love Broadway. So many of us love Broadway, right? And of course, one of the complications with Broadway is it's usually a very small group of musicians in the pit. And if you even have like 10 musicians, that'll be like a pretty amazing sound for like a Broadway orchestra. And basically what Bernstein did is he wrote music for that size orchestra, but then for the symphonic dances, he blows it up for the full orchestra, and the colors and the vibrancy and all of the energy that you have in the music, for the original musical is by a factor of like 100 is increased because you got from 10 musicians to like almost 100 musicians. It's just unbelievable what he can suddenly do with this piece. It's almost like a completely different work. It's everything you love about West Side Story, but what he's done is transformed it truly. And that's why I love the title. It's not a suite from West Side Story. It's the Symphonic Dances. And so very clearly right away he's telling us that he's exploded it out into something entirely different.
Now, I know I've got to tell us a little anecdote. In the summer before Bernstein died, he was one of the founders with Michael Tilson Thomas of the Pacific Music Festival. And one of the things that happened in Japan that summer was that Bernstein was there with the London Symphony Orchestra and student musicians. And I got to sit right behind him while the London Symphony Orchestra was rehearsing these symphonic dances from West Side Story. And even at the age that he was when he died in 1990, he was there snapping his fingers, nodding his head, and it was as if it was 1958 again. This music was just inside him, and it was something that he loved all the way through to the end. Tell me what the orchestra musicians feel like when they get to snap fingers, they get to yell out mambo in the middle of the thing. I mean, that must again be kind of a buzz for them.
Yeah, it's fun. It's always like you always feel really dorky in rehearsal. And everyone kind of sort of half does it because we're all like, this is weird. Like, why would you like we're having fun? Like, what is that? But once you get the audience in the hall, it's fantastic. It's so much fun to just kind of, let loose and surprise people. And I don't know, it's yeah. Those little extra things he adds really do make such a difference and remind us that this music has a whole storyline behind it.
Sure. And finally, do you have any particular feeling about Bernstein? I know there must be a sense, on the one hand, kind of American classical music sort of begins and ends with him in some way as a kind of a superstar who is able to also be part of the popular music of his time and the classical music of his time. And yet, the things that led up to Bernstein, the things that come after him, the wonderful legacy he has. Tell me if you have a personal experience or a personal feeling about Bernstein and his work.
Yeah, well, this concert was sort of at the tail end of 2018, which was the Bernstein Centennial. And I conducted, I think, about 8 different all Bernstein concerts with 5 different orchestras, all in the course of like a year, which was ridiculous. And honestly, I'm glad to get a little bit of a break from it. But it was great. I got to do everything from, his symposium, the violin concerto, to I did like more of like a pops concert where I took some of his musicals, some of the ones that people don't know as well, and did selections from Bernstein musicals, did the first symphony, the Jeremiah Symphony. I got to really get a sense for all the different styles that he did. And ultimately, that whole year, one of the things I tried to get across to audiences is when we celebrate Bernstein to make sure that we don't just celebrate the popular figure, But what he did better than any other musician, perhaps in history, was be this all-around communicator and representative for our art form. And so when I think of Bernstein, I think of not just the composer, but in fact, perhaps much more influential as a conductor, as a pianist, as an educator, as a philosopher. I mean, he covered the whole wide-ranging view of kind of the modern Renaissance man, if you will. And the gifts that he gives us are in so many different areas of our lives now. And a lot of what I try to do, my whole passion about family concerts, starting a family series in Eugene, taking over the family series in Santa Rosa. And what I'm trying to do is get back to that, because, one of the really sad things is that as much as the orchestra world celebrates him, we have not followed in his footsteps in the ways that I think we should have. And he remains kind of the first and last major music director to make education a foundation of what he did. Now orchestras as a whole do that, but you don't see the top 5 to 10 conductors in the world taking the time to, like hold discussions with kids. And of course, not everyone's able to do that. But if you watch, he had this way of just bringing everyone together, and he didn't talk down to kids. It wasn't like that, but he had this desire to communicate, and the excitement he brought to his work was undeniable. And I think if we get past that barrier in music where we don't have to dumb down our art form, we don't have to try to cut it up into pieces and make it, easy to digest, for people. I think Bernstein showed us an incredible way just by having integrity about our work, being willing to open ourselves up and be honest about what we do. And all of this, all the things that he brought to it, that's what I try to channel. And that's what I'm trying to get us back to. And I know there are a lot of young conductors like me now that are trying to take that mantle on and get us back to that point where the music director was a leader in many ways, not just the main stage concerts.
Well, thanks, Francesco. That's a fabulous way for us to remember Bernstein. And I'm sure people will enjoy, I hope, watching this discussion. And of course, they'll enjoy the concert. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.